Bruce just won, Sal, and Brett.
Good morning. I am calling to order this meeting of the Public Safety and Justice Committee at 9:02. Colin, let's begin with a roll call, please.
Vice Chairperson Chavez.
Here.
And Chairperson Ellenberg.
I am here as well. With that, we'll turn to public comment. This is the portion of the agenda set aside for members of the public wishing to address the committee on matters not on today's agenda, but within the purview of the committee. Do we have speakers this morning?
We have no speakers in the room, but we do have 2 speakers online.
Okay, let me just note for speakers on Zoom, if you're intending to speak on public comment, now is the moment to raise your virtual hand. The queue will close when the first speaker begins speaking, so we'll give it a few additional seconds in case anyone is thinking of raising their hand.
There are no additional requests to speak.
All right, let's offer each of our 2 speakers 3 minutes, please.
All right. Our next speaker is resident. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Please accept the unmute, and timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hello, good morning. My name is Ben, and I keep talking to members of this committee, the Board of Supervisors, people in the District Attorney's Office, to please help me. My kids are being sexually abused. I'm being assaulted as a result of that, and the DA's office is prosecuting me because of it. It's just a terrible thing that's going on in this county. I think it's akin to like S&M, like if you don't let your kids get raped, you're going to jail. I've already spent 5 days in jail. I don't even have a criminal record. And I mean, like, I'm being assaulted. I'm telling the DA directly, look, I'm being assaulted because of these charges, because I don't want to comply with things that my former attorney is demanding of. I don't want to comply. I don't want my kids raped. I mean, like, the law's on my side. Penal Code 236.1 says that legal proceedings cannot be used or abused to facilitate the sexual assault of a child. I mean, it says it. You can't do it. But Mr. Rosen just keeps doing it over and over. You just won't leave me alone. And I'm asking you guys, please, if there's somebody on this committee, somebody within this meeting that can talk to Mr. Rosen, talk some sense into him. I mean, he keeps saying nobody is above the law. He says that over and over. Nobody's above the law. But I tell you guys that there are people above the law. And until Mr. Rosen doesn't act, doesn't go protect my kids, and possibly prosecute the person who's doing this to me, then there are people above the law. And it's just, I mean, maybe I would have gone about things differently if I had known that people were above the law. I mean, but I've been brainwashed by Mr. Rosen into thinking that there are people who are not, I mean, that people are not above the law. And I wish you would just stop saying that to people. Just stop saying it. There'd be so much, the community would be so much better if you could put out a list, people who could go rape children, people who could kill people. Just put out the list, then we'll know. Everybody in Santa Clara County will know who can do these things. And then people like myself, maybe we would say, okay, rape my kids. Go ahead, go do it, please, go do it. But I mean, please, is there somebody help my kids? I mean, I posted all this information online. If you Google Jeff Rosen DA petition, it'll be the first website that pops up. Please help me. Thank you very much.
Our final speaker on the item is Samsung 37U. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. My comments are specific to the overall context of public safety. That public safety is compromised when the county pays out hush money to families. 10 million in the case of Andrew Hogan, 7 million in the case of Juan Nunez. Now, I was at the meeting when the report came out, and I thank Supervisor Sumedian for compelling that report. It was probably one of the most disgusting, most vile, most inhumane reports that has been read into the public record as he requested it be. The cover-ups that were going on, the nurses lying on the documents, lying to cover themselves up, to cover their tracks, the logbooks, the guards faking the information that's there, saying that the inmate was eating, and they were not. Because eating is an indication that the person is okay and they're healthy. And that's why they did it. How sinister, how sickening. And what James Williams did as county council is paid off those families' hush money, because you do not want the real truth and the real information about what goes on in those jails. But it's okay for men like me to live with that. And that when we come and we challenge you and you're responsible for those jails, you render our reality to opinion. Or he's just an angry criminal. This is what you did. This is exactly what you did. This is not opinion. This is fact. Then in the next sentence, you will speak very haughtily and almost arrogantly about your moral compass in the applications of your policies. And it's deafening how contradictory and how the hypocrisy is deafening. And people are dying and being abused inside the jails as a result of that hypocrisy, and as a result of you not wanting the truth about what goes on in that jail to come to light. Because if it did, it would rival Auschwitz. And that's not an exaggeration. How would you know? You've never been there. I have. 3+ decades. So the opinion is not opinion. It's based and rooted in fact in someone's life.
And that concludes our request to speak.
Thank you very much. Item 3 is to approve the consent calendar and changes to the committee's agenda. I'll look to Vice Chair Chavez. I know who you are. Do you have any changes to the consent calendar? Would you like to make a motion?
I move the consent calendar.
I will second that. Do we have speakers on consent?
There are no requests to speak in the room, and there are no requests to speak online.
All right, let's vote, please.
Vice Chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
And Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Moving to item 4, to receive a report from the Public Health Department relating to strategies and recommendations regarding the cost of gun violence study. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair. I'm Dr. Sarah Rudman with the Public Health Department. And what you have before you today responds to several different requests related to both public health and administration related to prevention of gun violence in our community. Specifically, public health was asked to conduct a geographic assessment of prevention activities by resident groups, community-based organizations, and government entities in specific neighborhoods that were shown by our previous data analyses to be most impacted by gun violence. And these areas include the city of Gilroy, as well as 8 zip codes in the city of San Jose. Today's report is just preliminary findings from this process, so you won't see the entirety of what we hope to accomplish by the time the scan is complete. Specifically, portions related to Gilroy are not yet complete and not included here. But the ultimate goal is to identify where the county might wish to support resident-centered and grassroots efforts, since these are the findings from our cost of gun violence study found to be the most powerful interventions and most called for by community members. And so I have with me today Angelica Diaz, Director of our Healthy Communities Branch, and Rhonda McClinton Brown, Deputy Director for Policy, Strategy, and Planning with Public Health. And Ms. Diaz will just add another comment before we're very interested to hear your response.
Thank you. Good morning. This assessment is a broad scan of the interventions across the identified zip codes. We did this by talking to the people doing the most important work, This report is partial, it's complex, and we look forward to hearing your input today. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to public comment, I want to appreciate that you clarified that this is a preliminary report. Can you say just a little bit or outline a little bit about what additional components are still being developed or analyzed that we should expect in the final report?
Yes, happy to answer that. Some of the analysis is still being developed in terms of being able to put together descriptions of our findings, including the portion of Gilroy, like Dr. Redmond mentioned. Also, the organization for how we present the findings in different ways is still exploring the best way to convey who are the individuals we talk to, the strategies that exist across the zip codes, making sure that we are able to convey both the breadth of intervention or depth of intervention, whether it is organizations that are serving a broad reach at the city level or county level, or those that have deep presence at the zip code level, or even at the neighborhood level. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anything else to add? Okay. Let's go to public comment, and then I will make a motion.
We have no requests to speak in the room. We do have 2 requests to speak online.
All right, for those of you on Zoom, if you are intending to speak on item 4, now's the time to raise your virtual hand. The queue will close when the first speaker begins speaking.
All right, the next speaker is...
Let's give them, hang on,
Oh, one
Colin,
second.
let's just give them a second or two to raise hands. We're holding it too?
No additional requests to speak.
All right, then we will hear our 2 speakers, 2 minutes each. Thank you.
Next speaker is 37U. You have 2 minutes to speak, and the timer will start when you begin speaking. "37U, are you there? Please accept the unmute." Okay. I'll go to the next speaker. The next speaker is Resident. You have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hello, good morning. One thing that is lacking in this report on gun violence is the alternative. The alternative tools to harm other people. I mean, there are knives, nunchucks, I guess you could strangle people with a cord. But, I think a really important one that's really unregulated in this county is poison. My former attorney, Valerie Houghton, has assaulted me repeatedly with poison because I don't want my kids raped. My testicles have atrophied.
Excuse
I have
me.
brain damage. All my organs are damaged. It's terrible what's going on in this county. It's really terrible. And you tell this to the DA, and he does absolutely nothing about it. Nothing. This person has a blank check to do whatever she wants.
I apologize, just confirming with County Council that public comment on specific agenda items needs to specifically relate to that agenda item and not have been addressed previously on public comment. So I'm going to ask the speaker to limit their comments to anything related to item 4.
Yeah, okay. Well, just violence in general it's wrong. And I'm glad that this committee is addressing it. And I hope that this committee can go even beyond the scope of this report. Maybe even add things into this report related to poison. It's not in this report, and I'm speaking to this report that it should be in this report. And I hope that there's no pushback on that, and that the county council can address it, that Mr. Rosen can address it, it really needs to be addressed. My health has been damaged pretty severely, and nobody seems to care. Mrs. Ellenberg doesn't care. I keep telling her what's going on, and she doesn't care. Thank you very much.
Final speaker on the item is 37U. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. 37U, please accept the unmute and speaking. Microphone for 37U is not active. I'm unable to activate the microphone. Well, there are no other requests to speak.
All right, thank you. Then I will make a motion to direct that the final report be presented to the Board of Supervisors at the December 5th meeting with the additions noted by staff. And I will turn to Supervisor Chavez for a second and any additional guidance regarding clarifications or additions to include in the final report.
Great, thank you. I'll second that. I will, at the end of the feedback I want to give, I want to ask if December is realistic, and mostly because I'm looking just at where you are right now, and there does seem like there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. So first, I just want to say I was really excited to read about just the depth of thinking that's going into how we really assess each community. And I think it's really important that as we begin this work, I love the idea of looking at 2 communities, looking at it geographically, and really overlaying all of the partner organizations we already have. I have a couple of, well, more than a couple, but I'm just going to give some thoughts, and none of it is direction. It really is thinking after reading this. One is that I do think that it is imperative that we take a deeper dive to determine when it's appropriate to use census tract data instead of zip code data. And the reason is that as I was looking at this, and it reminded me that when I had gone to County Com, I was looking at the heat maps on County Com, and they're actually more defined than, I mean, they use zip codes too, but when you look at the heat maps, they're much more refined than a zip code. And so I just want to encourage us to consider opportunities to use census tract data. I think that's particularly important if we're going to do place-based strategies. And then the other is, there's a chart that you all have in here, and I'm not sure what packet page it's on, and I apologize for that because I think I printed this, but it's figure 5, and it's got the non-law enforcement and the law enforcement boxes attached to it. And I was really struck by the fact that we know we have an extremely high number of people in our community who die by guns from suicide. And as I was reading both the document, that wasn't really reflected in that. So what I was going to suggest is that whatever the report is, that the first page is who's dying by firearms and how, even if it's at high level. And then I think what that means is that as I look at these boxes, I'd be looking a little deeper at behavioral health, because in the immediate intervention, there's one box, but I know behavioral health is doing a lot of work on this issue. And I think this is the point that you were raising, is that this is going to be much more crosswalk than silos. And the fact is that we're actually investing quite a lot of resources already in addressing the issue, but that wasn't in this iteration. So I just want to encourage you to go ahead and crosswalk that, because otherwise it looks like we don't understand where we're seeing guns actually kill people in our community. And then, is that a doable thing? Is that an understandable thing? Oh,
Yes, thank you.
Casey, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, in terms of 2 points, you mentioned whether or not December is a reasonable time frame. So in conversations with Assistant District Attorney James Gibbon Shapiro and Supervising District Attorney Marissa McEwen, who, as most of us know, runs our Crime Strategies Unit, the DA's office is in the process of analyzing some of their prosecution data to get exactly to the point that you raised, Supervisor Chavez, which is who is dying and who is being injured by gun violence and why. And what they're finding is that it falls essentially into 3 distinct categories. One being gun violence driven by what we would consider criminal street gangs. The second, which is about 1/3, is intimate partner violence. And the next third is what we would broadly consider interpersonal conflict. So people who may or may not have significant criminal records, no criminal streaking activity, not necessarily domestic violence, but the prevalence of guns in the community is meaning that more people have access to weapons, are carrying them with them, and are struggling in regular conflict and producing those weapons to handle that conflict. But in my conversation with Assistant District Attorney Gibbon Shapiro, he didn't think that analysis would be complete for potentially a few months as they're looking at that data. And I think that it might be helpful to have that as well. So just to kind of keep in mind for as we're determining timelines.
And I really appreciate that. Let me come back to that topic. But if you could just take a moment to talk about the partnership between you and behavioral health as it relates to perhaps what I'm looking at, and then I'll come back. Thank you, Casey.
Supervisor Chavez, you're asking what our collaboration is with behavioral health as it relates to those broader categories of incidences? Is that what you're asking?
No, what I'm really trying, well, maybe there's a different way to ask this question. So what I want to make sure of is that when the board sees the final matrix of all of the ways we're addressing this issue, that it's explicit in terms of the roles that everybody's playing. Because actually what Casey raised was sort of an interesting point about the non-suicide issues. But for me, what I want to be able to take a look at is all of the ways we are already addressing the issue so that because I think what it would assist us in understanding is how the new programs that would be recommended fit in to what we're doing versus just kind of adding on, kind of a Winchester mystery house, but more in a, this is what the problem we're trying to solve. Here are the things we're already doing. Here are the things that we're doing that we think are effective. Here are the things we should stop doing. Because what it looks like you're exploring, and I really appreciate it, is an even deeper level of investment, a more targeted level of investment in ways perhaps we haven't invested before.
Yeah.
And so what that means to me is all of us up here need to understand exactly the problem we're trying to solve, which is why I want that upfront data. Second, what are we already doing to resolve those issues? I thought, for example, the paragraph here on triumph, what is it? Tragedy to trauma to triumph?
Yeah.
That one in particular is one that it's been going on long enough now. We should actually know whether or not that's been a successful intervention. I think we have a lot of data, and I think this is very good from the City of San Jose's Gang Task Force. I know it's got a new name. I'll learn it. But from that body of work. So anyway, I think we've got some successes and some, and maybe some areas where we think we might want to tweak it or change it. So in my mind, if that figure 5 could really be replete with the support services that are already in place, that would just be really helpful.
Yeah,
Because that
got
way we're
it.
not starting from scratch
Yeah.
and saying, I've got an idea about a program, which I think is how we get to Winchester Mystery House. We help you up here.
Yeah, yeah.
When we don't know what's happening. So that's all I meant.
Thank you, Supervisor, for that clarification. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's possible.
So then the other thing is that as I was reading through some of the high-level recommendations, there were just 2 issues that I really wanted to raise, which are, one is that there are some other issues relative to dropping violence in general and gun violence in particular, and some of them really come out of some interesting areas like Chicago and Pennsylvania, and they've been doing them longer. And for example, Chicago has done ceasefire in a different way than we've done it here in California. That's much, again, more targeted and much more focused on communities that are at risk with individuals that are actually highlighted. San Jose took a look at this a while ago, and I just haven't looked at the more recent research. we're going to be looking at it in my office, so we'll share that with you. And also in Pennsylvania, some ways that they've been dropping violence in the community. It's actually been just to clean the community up. That, you clean a block and all of a sudden you see really significant drops in crime. So again, it feels tangential to the behavioral health and all these other things, but the work that's being done to clean up and beautify areas is really significant. So I want to encourage that. And then the last area that on the research part is that I think we need to take a deeper look at the homeless population separately. And the reason I'm suggesting this is that when we're looking at neighborhoods and we're looking at census tracts and even zip codes, we're looking at a lot of times at people who are injured or murdered in an area that, and if they're transient, I wonder if we are understanding enough about the community safety needs of folks that are homeless. And I don't have a solution for that. It's just something I think we need to try to think about. And maybe as part of our, one recommendation I would make is that with Destination Home, talking to them, their board of lived experience folks, they've been really helpful to us on fentanyl and meth. They probably would have some great insight as to how we think about safety for the unhoused. And I think we've seen an increase in both gun violence and other kinds of violence in that community, including knives. So there may be some benefit in talking to them. We will talk to you offline about some of the programs that you're looking at. And again, what I would just say is if you could give us an off agenda that actually tells us when it's possible to have a complete report, I think would be very beneficial. And then President Ellenberg, the Children's Family Seniors Committee is jointly meeting with the City of San Jose's Neighborhood Services Committee, and one of the things we'll be looking at is the Youth Services Master Plan there, and the children's budget that you've led on here, which I also think will be another opportunity to look at the geography and the focus for the high-need community and the broader community, because I'd like us as much of alignment as we can have. I think would be really beneficial. And I know I said one last thing, but I will say this, and one thing I was also thinking about was what of our programming, and I know you all are looking at this, but NSU, our Peace Partnership and the like, what belongs with us, what belongs with the city, where do we have the right staff to provide the right services? And I really want to encourage us not to professionalize every interaction we have with a child, meaning it shouldn't be a clinical psychologist or a therapist in order to provide neighborhood recreation services. And I think a lot of people, a lot of us, grew up in neighborhoods that were very working class or more challenged, and those parks and recreation programs where you had a 17-year-old who was just a little more mature and, that could interact with you in a healthy way, it made all the difference. So I also just want to make sure as we're looking at programs that we're not trying to get every problem doesn't need a therapist. And I say this because we couldn't afford to do it anyway.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Thank you for all of that. Something that stood out to me is what we hear so much in conversations around child abuse, that one trusting adult, one constant adult, which could be an advocate, could be a big brother, sister, could be a teenager who provides that role model. So that just really resonates with me. It's the humanity more than the degree that I think is really critical. Let me come back to Casey and your comments about the district attorney's analysis. Does their analysis include suicide and non-criminal data?
Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg. I don't believe it does. My understanding is that they're looking at their prosecution data, including assaults, homicide cases that have been charged and have not been able to be charged because they didn't have a suspect identified or there was some reason that they couldn't move forward with the case. They do have some preliminary suicide data, but I don't think that's what they're going to focus on. I think it's going to be more about the criminal cases, is my understanding.
Did you want to add something in?
Yes. So we did, my office did some research on this in partnership with with Dr. Jordan, the medical examiner's office. And so what I would ask is that we include Dr. Jordan in this discussion because they keep that data. And one thing I'll share with you is that what we were looking at is a pretty detailed sheet that, like Excel form that had the incident and the type of firearm. And the question that I wanted to add, the column I wanted to add, was the firearms that were available. And this actually goes back to the point just of the availability of firearms
Right.
in a home. And then we looked at some additional research that really just said that what we know is that when people have access, they're more inclined to use it than if they don't have access. But I think that data would be really important for people to see. I think the other thing that it might have had on it was whether or not the firearm was stolen. So, but we can look, and I would just encourage us through Greta to ask the medical coroner's office if they can assist in the research component of it.
Thank you for that. And I really do think that it's important to see an analysis that brings together the public health, the district attorney data, the medical examiner collectively, so that we're not siloing this. And just thinking about that amount of data, I may have been a little hasty with December. I really want this to be strong and comprehensive. January may make more sense given the DA's timeline. So let's look at January. Instead, I'll amend the motion. And when the final report comes back, I'd really like to see additional clarification on the number or type of programs and the amount. This may have been just redundant to what you said, but really the amount of time invested in each area, so we can quantify not only what's working, what may not be, but what's happening already in each zip code, so that we can make some kind of relative comparison among the high-risk areas. And again, to your comment about safety, back in public safety through clean neighborhoods, in 2020, that summer when I led the community conversations and wanted to understand people's conception of what public safety looks like, very rarely in those conversations was it more law enforcement. Sometimes it was, but the most common responses were clean neighborhoods, well-lit neighborhoods, smooth streets, absence of empty, unused lots that weren't converted to some other purpose. So it's interesting to me how much the physical environment really dramatically impacts real and perceived safety of a community. So I appreciate bringing that in and want to make sure that that's part of our analysis for what makes safe neighborhoods. And in addition to of course, to the presentation of the analysis, I'll be really interested in hearing public health's conclusion from the community assessment, how you would summarize the findings and observations, what caveats might the board and the public keep in mind when we are reviewing the data, and of course, ultimately, how all of this information should inform action or investments by the board relative to the $1 million already allocated, and then whatever else is needed going forward. So I am really excited about this work. I am particularly pleased by the collaborative, cross-sectional, cross-county, even with the DA, with the medical examiner, with folks with lived experience. I think this is going to be incredibly significant work that we bring forward. Are there any other comments from anyone else up here? Oh, please.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to say. I thought I was reading this line in the report, and it said, we're not the boss of anyone, is sort of what public health says. We love people into doing what they're supposed to do. You said it in a more professional way, but that's essentially what you all said. And one thing that I would just say is that when you do the report, I think the point that President Allenberg raised was an interesting one about, in some areas it won't be our responsibility necessarily to keep the streets clean and blight-free and all of that. I do think that it's an imperative anyway that we name all the things that make a community safer, because it gives us the opportunity, frankly, when we're having a conversation with the city of Gilroy or the city of San Jose, to say, we have resources for X, you have resources for Y, but if it's not clear who's responsible for what, and there's a gap, then to be honest with you, we build a neighborhood safety unit that the city of San Jose should have built. Like, that's what happens when we're not like being really clear, and or when we're not saying, right now we know the city doesn't have money, and so we're going to step in and play this leadership role, and we have a plan to move it to you over a period of time, but we don't have that. Our communication isn't that great yet. It will be someday. But I do think, and I don't mean to pick on the neighborhood safety unit, that's one that I realized when Senator Cortese was talking about it. He was like, we don't have a choice. It's not our job, but things are so bad, we have to jump in and help. And that's appropriate, and we should be able to say, this really is your job, and this is our job, and let's figure out how we can share resources in a better way. And I think as Greta and James keep telling us, we're going to have a little dip in our own resources, that collaboration. She's going to say it's a big dip. Don't you dare. But that collaboration is even going to be more critical with our partners, and being able to be intellectually honest, so we do a better job of sharing resources. And then Susan, you just made me think of something that I wanted to share with all of you, and this will be no surprise to any of you, but many, many years ago, when I might have just been on the city council, or I was a neighborhood activist, San Jose State did a project where they gave children Polaroid cameras and had them walk around the neighborhood and take pictures of what made them feel safe, what they loved about their neighborhood, and what made them feel unsafe. And it was sort of heartbreaking, actually. You know, what you could see that made them feel safe was the grass at their school, which, by the way, was so little at the time. I mean, it was that was the one that actually made me. I was like, we will get you more grass, which we did. But what scared them was everything from the graffiti to the actually to the press. You know, the boxes you have where they had, like, you could grab newspapers, but they were kind of pornography, you know, and the dirt on the street. Like, they took more pictures of litter, and you know, out of the mouths of babes, like, there's a lot of wisdom there, right? That they knew what made them feel safe. And then ultimately the other thing that I thought was really beautiful is they told them not to take pictures of each other. They were supposed to take pictures of things, but the things that made them feel safe were their teachers, their friends, you know. It was really pretty lovely. So we'll look forward to seeing this. Thank you.
I see no other lights on, so let's vote on this item, please.
And there are no requests to speak, just to note. Vice Chairperson Chavez. Yes. And Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 5 is the Pretrial Services Annual Population Trend Report. Hey, Matt.
Good morning. I'm excited to be here today to present. One of the.
Will you introduce yourself first for the record, please?
My name is Matthew Fisk. I'm the Director of Pretrial Services, and I'd like to introduce my colleagues that are sitting down right now. Michaeline Regan is our Assistant Director. She began as a student intern a while back, and she has helped to shape the department to make it what it is. So I really appreciate working with her. Also, we have Dr. B. We call her Dr. B for two reasons. One, her name is very confusing, Bologna Betcolia, but also she just recently received a postgraduate degree. She did a lot of research related to electronic monitoring and how it intersects with domestic violence.
Oh, wow. Wow. Congratulations.
Also, my boss, Casey Halcon, she has been extremely supportive and resourceful and influential, and actually helpful with this presentation. So, real quickly, for the benefit of those who are not familiar with pretrial services, pretrial is a relatively new field of work within criminal justice. It hasn't been around that long. It actually kind of took on its current form in New York with the Manhattan Bail Project, 1959. And so since then it's grown. The reliance has grown on it. If you look at our department, it was established, I like to say, a little bit before I was born, 1969. I was born in 71. And it has had a steady climb. It was very steady with about 40 employees for a decade up until 2019, and we'll talk about that. So what is pretrial? Well, basically, pretrial supports the court. Here we have our chief judge. It's really important to explain that the court makes all the decisions. Pretrial's role is to support the court and all the justice partners in a neutral way, which is one of the things that makes the job rewarding. We're able to kind of be the good guy and just do the best we can. We do three things. We triage at the jail. We get as much information from recently arrested persons and assess risk related to new offenses, breaking court orders, and not appearing in court. And we provide reports to the court, and the court shares those reports with the justice partners. We also monitor those who our judges order to our monitoring.
Can you push your mic a little closer?
Oh, sure. Thank you. And so we use a number of techniques to monitor our clients, but it's important to point out that we're not law enforcement officers. We are office-based, and we basically leverage partnerships and technology and personal interaction with our clients to help them to get to court problem-free. That's really the goal. So the reporting is a big part of it. We are issuing about 28,000 reports a year, so it's quite a bit. So pretrial is once again, we're here to support our partners, and because of such significant changes recently, we've actually had to take on goals that aren't that usual. Usually the performance goals are kind of, how many reports, how many people to supervise. We've actually had to take on infrastructural goals. We have to restructure our services because of the growth. What happened, and I'll go to a slide. I'll go ahead and go to the slides. Okay. We'll just focus on probably 2 slides for the whole presentation. There's about 5 slides you can look at. So in 2000, if you went, don't worry, I'm not going to start back in 1969, but
Love the enthusiasm now.
it was pretty flat. Yeah, it was pretty flat. We had 40 employees, and we had up to 2,000 clients up until 2019. It would range between 1,500 and 2,000 clients. Who are the clients? People that are on own recognizance release. They receive very limited services. People are on supervised own recognizance release. They receive a lot more support. And then we also had a handful of people that are on electronic monitoring and supervised OR. That's really grown a lot. So if you started back in 2000, let's say FY 2019, or it says 2018, about 2,000 clients. Each year it climbed about 500 clients. You can see what happened during the pandemic. This is a combination of criminal justice reform, a real focus on pretrial justice, and more reliance on pretrial services to enable us to kind of navigate the pandemic. And that has been a joint effort with all partners. You can see the dip in, from 3,500 cases to 3,000 cases. That's because the court has been really willing to work with us to deal with cases in mass, and just as limited as their staff was and their calendars, they figured out a way to help us to reduce the caseload. And $0 bail expired around August of 2018. And it really started to climb. At this point, we're up to 5,000 cases total. That's about 4,000 people, a little bit more than 4,000 people. It's about 500 ORs, so they don't require a lot of attention. We have diversion cases, about 250. We have over 3,300 people right now on supervised OR, and the electronic monitoring has grown from 200 or 300 to 1,300, about 1,300 individuals on electronic monitoring. So that's definitely being used. The challenges that we are having and the progress we're making is why I've invited Michaeline and Bell to be with us here today. They're going to elaborate a little bit more. But there are four main challenges. One, just more cases and more clients in a short period of time. For longer durations, inevitably. With the pandemic, actually, we've really picked up the speed processing cases. There's just a lot of cases to process when you're dealing with 3 years' worth of work. So again, I want to compliment the court for not one time have they rejected meeting with us or trying out an idea. So we're grateful for that. These clients that we have are a different clientele than we used to supervise. Honestly, go back a decade, the clients were typical OR clients. They didn't have the criminogenic and beyond criminogenic needs that our clients have today. We're not utilizing jails in the same way. So we have a broader array of more intense needs, such as mental illness, substance dependence. Also, there's violence involved, some of the clients that we have. Thus, the supervision with electronic monitoring. And electronic monitoring includes GPS and also continuous alcohol monitoring. There's also a remote breath device. It's kind of like a big pager, and you blow into it when you're told to. And so those tools help us to really monitor. But I'd like to emphasize that our work is different than that of probation. We're not law enforcement officers. We're not going into the field, into people's homes. We are monitoring from an office, and we're monitoring through our partners like behavioral health, even custody health. We work a lot with the Sheriff's Department. I remember in the pandemic when we had to get a lot of people out of jail very quickly. Dr. B and Michaeline and staff got together, and with the Sheriff's Department, we quickly learned how to use the electronic monitoring equipment. And the company sent us hundreds of devices to do so. And the sheriff's officers were right there learning how to do it. So I'd like to just point out that what I should have pointed out in the beginning, and that is our greatest challenge right now is staff attrition. We started with 40 employees. In a year, thanks to my colleagues who have become a HR department on top of the jobs they do, we've doubled our staff. So we went from about 40 employees to, we added about 38. Actually, these numbers are a little bit out of date. So we've doubled our staff. We have about 13 more recruitments, and that'll get us to just under 100 employees. It's important to point out that as resilient and perseverant and respectful, that's one of the things about the staff. They're respectful with the leadership, and they're respectful with all the clients, despite all the stress. And so we've lost about half of our veteran staff. And we've been replacing them with new staff that come in, and they have to learn how to do everything, really, from the beginning. And the job they go into is that of an associate pretrial officer, and then the next level is the pretrial officer. That's the level that does the electronic monitoring. That's the area where we've lost most of the staff because it's the most intense. And that's the area where we've experienced a lot of growth. It's just very labor intensive. So I want to thank our staff for really holding on, and really, I think what's gotten us is just this last year because of the significant growth. And what's good is it's an opportunity for us to rethink everything that we're doing and to restructure. And we're actively doing so. I'm going to let Michaeline and Bell kind of explain how we're doing that. Our goals are to recruit and train and retain staff. And second goal is to build the pretrial infrastructure, but not just in our office, countywide. And the third one is to improve services through improving technology. Doing our very best to leverage the tools that we have to do more, better, sooner, all those things. Michaeline, could you go ahead and talk about our recruitment efforts?
Hi, good morning. Michaeline Regan, Assistant Director of Pretrial Services.
Can you also speak directly into your
Yeah,
mic?
sorry.
It's all right, thank
Is that
you.
better?
Yes.
So we continue to strategically work with ESA on our various vacancies in our department. The training efforts, which I'll focus on, is and I'll focus on the pretrial services officers and associates. Since last October, we onboarded 15. Unfortunately, 2 of them left, so we're down to 13. And we're trying to train them as quickly as possible so we can get ourselves back into the courtroom. And we're planning on that right now. I pulled staff out because the caseloads were very, very high, and I needed my staff to focus on the EMP, and the liability of the department is in supervision, so I really needed them to focus on that. But we have our new recruitments that we're diligently training them in supervision so that when we get into the courtroom, they are able to answer the court's questions and the attorney's questions, and they're able to assist the court like we need them to. We're cross-training as many people as possible, and we're doing our best to get staffing up to speed. Since Matt said I've been here as an intern, I started as an intern back in 1995, and it literally takes probably a year to 2 years to fully grasp the job. So that's why we're slowly moving, but we're trying to move as quickly as possible. And everybody's learning styles are different, so we have some people that are quick on top of it, and some people we just need to train, coach, and mentor a little bit longer. But we're doing our best.
I'd like to point out that a lot of the staff that we've lost was a gain for the probation department, and that's a good thing. We're proud of that. We have people in backgrounds right now. We like to think that we prepare people well enough to continue their career and do the probation work. And that's my thought. The work's become that intense that they're saying, why not take the next step and go into law enforcement?
Do you do reentry hiring? Would seem like that's a good pathway as well.
There are opportunities there. We haven't seen anybody go over to reentry yet. However, actually, in a way, we have
No,
behavioral
sorry.
health.
I mean,
Yeah.
People with lived experience in the carceral system coming out looking for jobs. Is
Yes.
this a pathway that should maybe be coordinated for
Yes.
your own recruitment, and a population that understands this work and working from an office may be really well suited for it?
Actually, I'm glad you pointed that out. Our first attempt at hiring staff with lived experience is a community worker, and we've done, is it 3 recruitments? 4 recruitments. It's tough to pass the background check. We need people that have lived experience, and we also have that balance.
Who determines? So we've heard that before, and certainly in connection with going into the jail as a peer supporter as well. Is the background check something that is fixed and required by an external law that you have no discretion over? Or can we be thinking critically in maybe a new way that we didn't when the current standards were implemented as to what really is necessary for everyone's safety, for the particular job at hand?
So we are bound by some state and federal laws. I would say the thing that would help us the most, in all honesty, is to support the expungement programs that the county has. You have people we had one individual that had 1 felony remaining, and we thought they'd be great for the job, but they had that one thing to take care of. We hope they'll come back because we think they're...
And do you connect them to the expungement program?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Did I interrupt your presentation? That wasn't complete?
Please.
Not at all. My name is...
Yes, I did, but thank you.
Not at all.
Apologies.
No problem. I am Bellona Bedkolya. I am the ASM3 at the Office of Pretrial Services. Good morning. And just to add to what Matt said, it is the Department of Justice requirement, Supervisor Ellenberg, that prevents us. Our candidates cannot have a felony record. We do often refer folks to the San Jose State program of clearing their records, which has been found to be very helpful.
So it's federal DOJ, just thinking about advocacy opportunities here. Federal,
Correct.
okay.
Correct. And it is a felony conviction that prevents us from bringing him on board due to our access level. you want me to continue?
There are also other standards that are local, and they're good standards that are there for a reason. For example, to gain jail access, there are other requirements. And so that's something that we're working on. We hope that we can recruit our very first community worker with lived experience. So, okay, I think Dr. B, would you like to talk about what we're doing about all this besides the staffing?
Sure. So as most of you, can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. As most of you are aware, we received pretrial funding through the state through SB 129 pretrial expansion funding, which is now AB 221. We're utilizing that funding currently to fill vacancies. Many of our newly funded positions were through that grant funding. We also share the funding with some of our counterparts, with the DA's office, PDO's office. We have a couple positions in the Sheriff's Office, Department of Corrections. But our primary utilization is for staffing to address the pretrial population, our caseloads, to facilitate releases in a timely manner while working with the court. Internally, we're also looking at various ways to utilize that funding by seeking opportunities to make enhancements on our case management system. Information sharing is a huge component of SB 129 pretrial expansion. We're working with TSS to address areas of improvement with POPS, which is our case management system. In fact, we have a meeting with them later today to determine what can be accomplished within this fiscal year to move forward. As a department, we're also in, I don't want to say early stages, but we're navigating the court reminder call system because it is an evidence-based practice for pretrial services. We would like to implement a system to do so by working closely with county council, as we understand there's regulations for us to follow. Currently, those calls are made by our clerical staff. They call each of our clients, informing them of an upcoming court date. So it's a manual process that does take up the afternoon to do so. I don't know if I missed anything else, Matt. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them in terms of utilizing the SB 129 funds.
Thank you. I am sure there will be questions, but sorry, let me see if
Please.
I was going to go to public comment, but only if your report is complete.
Okay, yes, I'll complete the report with this.
Thank
you. So I'd like to point out that the funding from SB 129 is called pretrial expansion funding, and it comes from the state through the court, and is a partnership between the court and pretrial services. And its requirements they're three-part. Set measurable goals with justice partners in the court, share the funding itself, and then continuously show improvements. So it's not just status quo or maintenance, but consistent improvement to pretrial services, not just our office, but countywide. So the court and pretrial, we have a list of shared priorities, and that's one of the things Dr. B was referring to. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have public speakers on this item?
There are no requests to speak in the room, and there are no requests to speak online.
All right. Supervisor Chavez, do you want to begin with this item? If not, I'm happy to.
Thank you. I just had two questions. First of all, thank you for the report. My first question is, when you're hiring for pretrial services, are those positions, given that they're grant funded, are they extra help or are they permanent positions with the county?
The pretrial service officers are currently funded by by AB 109 funds through this new fiscal year. They were transitioned over. We do have ongoing positions under the pretrial expansion funding, but we also have extra help in term limited positions. However, the positions Michaeline was referring to, they're all funded through AB 109.
So one request that I would have is, could you give us just the breakdown in an off agenda that just says, this is how many of our positions are permanent, these are those types of positions, and this is what's extra help. And the reason is, if the turnover is so dramatic, what I want to understand is, are people leaving because they don't see a permanent place for them and an opportunity to grow within that department? And frankly, given the importance and the expansion of the department, I think having more experienced people really matters in terms of the effectiveness and success of the overall pretrial program. So I'd be interested in getting that off agenda. And then you have a chart in our packet that has reporting is increasing along with workload, and it has the family courts as the snapshot. So just so I understand this, on all of this body of work, so for the 28,000 cases that the family court, that are within family court, you do all of these types of assessments for family court? This is all pretrials work?
We provide criminal histories to the family court so they can make a determination whether to issue a criminal or a protective order, restraining order.
So if I'm looking at this chart properly, for family court, of the 28,000 cases, then if I'm looking at this list, are you reviewing all 28,000?
Correct.
I might be able to assist with that. So what they're doing, this is a partnership with the courts that goes back several years, and there's a tight turnaround for their ability to get those reports back to the court, but it's essentially a criminal history. So it's not pretrial services the way that we would understand it, but because of the access that pretrial services has to the CJIC system, criminal histories, and some of the people that they're requesting these case histories on are actually clients of pretrial services. They're running these reports. So they are time sensitive, they are time consuming, but they're generally done by clerical staff. And when there's overflow, sometimes pretrial services officers, because the volume has gone up significantly. So it
But
does.
this is a body of work that belongs to pretrial?
It does belong to pretrial.
So I always thought, and I wrongly, that this was something that probation did. Is this a new body of work that you're doing, or this has always been the role you've played with the courts?
Correct. It's been a role we played with the courts. And
Yep.
just to clarify, I think it's 4,800. The 28,000 is the total report number. So it's 4,800 for the family court reports.
It's about 400 reports per month, Supervisor Chavez. It's about almost 5,000 per year. So
Okay,
that
so-
20,000 is all the reports combined.
Oh, okay. So 5,000 belong to pretrial services.
Correct. So,
Okay.
and to clarify also, our clerical team runs the criminal history, and then our pretrial officers will input it, and they'll do the report, and then they'll send it off to court.
Thank you. And is this only, do you only do this for family court?
Correct.
Okay, then
Probation does it for criminal cases. Yeah.
thank you. I'm getting my bearings. That's very, very helpful. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Molly and then Casey.
Thank you, Chairperson Ellenberg. Thank you, Matt, for that report. I hope that your office continues to be fully supported and staffed. The change in the criminal legal system really has to come with getting people out of jail, and you do a great job monitoring them. Having said that, though, I want to say out loud that I'm hearing from the lawyers on the ground that SORP is used a lot more, and you can see it in the chart you provided today. Precipitous rise in the number of people released on pretrial supervised OR in a way that I'd like to suggest used to be done with regular OR. And I think we should be really mindful, especially because pretrial, as they've said today, is understaffed, at overusing the SORP program. That is, lots of people on first-time offenses in the past were released on OR, and I think there's a practice has developed to sort of use SORP in a way that it hasn't been used in the past, and that is really a decision for independent judicial officers to make. But as this body really participates in many spheres in that realm, I think we should just kind of say it out loud and think about it, so that and Matt, perhaps you could talk about whether you think there has been a change in the use of supervised OR, because I'm conjecturing just looking at your figures and also talking to the lawyers in my office.
Thank you, Molly. So I'm trying to think of a more difficult job than judge, maybe chief operating officer, Santa Cruz. but I would like for the judges to have more options. Again, this is a clientele that's different than the clientele that we used to address. We're in a world now where our probation duration's been cut short. Diversion can last as long as probation, and we have clients that have needs, longstanding needs that have brought them into the situation. Many of them before may have remained in custody, but now they're on pretrial supervision. So it's true, about twice as many people are being released to SORP as used to be. And any options we can give the judges for more transitional releases, I think would be very helpful to the court. And that's one of the things we're focused on.
The beauty of this committee is that we've got everyone here. Judge McGowan, would you like to weigh in?
I just want to say one quick point. I think to take Matt's report, it has to be overlaid on the fact that the number of cases being filed has gone significantly down. So you have to look at Matt's data with the number of increases of SORP and everything else as contrasted with the foundational fact that the district attorney has chosen to put more cases in diversion, to take some drug offenses and make them infractions. So the number of filings of cases, and this really matters to the court because the court's funding is based on filings, right? So the number of cases filed has gone significantly down, which means that the number of SORP cases and everything else has significantly grown. And the court is also, I know this isn't pretrial services, a big fan of the sheriff's program, which also offers its own kind of supervised, it's actually like SORP plus, I guess, is how I would describe it. But the court has developed all of these options with our partners. I can't take a position on reducing incarceration, but I do think you have to look at these numbers as compared to the number of filings, because that number is drastically smaller than it used to be during the same time frame of Matt's presentation. Thank you.
What a disturbing funding model. It just makes me think precisely of First Five as well, the funding of which is dwindling because fewer people are smoking. So yay that we have fewer smokers, but boo that the Prop 10 tax has declined, and that's presenting a challenge for our program. So that really is disturbing to hear. But just another question from you, and I won't ask you to take a position on decarceration, Judge McGowan, but the safety assessment that the courts make in terms of releasing people, do you think that it's possible that there's either an over-reliance on electronic monitoring, or that's the default in order to get more people out of incarceration? Because I'm thinking about the significantly increased workload going from 3,000 to 5,000 over the course of a year of people that are on electronic monitoring. The court doesn't necessarily, have an obligation to think about the workload of pretrial services, but I'm just wondering what the conversations are around electronic monitoring and whether it's kind of an automatic default in many cases.
I'd say you have 82 judicial officers and 82 different opinions on that topic, but I do think that where pretrial excels is in providing us enough details about what factors we can consider. It's more common for someone to be put on electronic monitoring if they've missed a number of their past court dates, if they've picked up a different or an additional charge while they've been out. Like, those are all factors that each individual judge would consider in deciding whether to go with just OR, whether to go to SORP, whether to go to the sheriff's plan that is, growing and getting up and running and offers even more, I think, oversight options, or frankly, leave someone in custody depending on the charges. So I don't think there's an easy answer to that. There's a whole range of topics that each officer considers. And, on top of all of that is the bail consideration that has to be part of that mix as well. And that's a whole separate, different legal analysis that would factor in.
And I believe we have a meeting agenda coming up that will absolutely focus on the bail reform. I'm going to go to Greta, then back to Public Defender O'Neill.
Yeah, part of what I was going to say, Judge McGowan just said, which is I think each of the judges approach some of those questions a little bit differently, but to just tie together something that that Matt shared and something Molly shared as well, I think a challenge that we have as a county organization is because of that judicial independence, when we're trying to calibrate resources at a system level, trying to make sure that we are achieving placement on the higher level of supervision for the higher end folks who there is a collective sense can be out of custody with high supervision, and then kind of save that resource for those folks. That's always not possible. That's not often possible because of the sort of independent decision making by each separate judge. So you will see significant inconsistency in the approach taken to utilize that spectrum of levels of supervision, judge by judge, which again, part of the county's role is to offer as much options as we can to the court so that they can make the best decision possible. But I did just want to name that a challenge we face is that unlike in other contexts where we can have a more systematic approach to allocating resources to need, this is one of a number in the criminal justice context where decisions about who goes where are made by judges with really different perspectives and approaches to making those decisions, which can result at times in us feeling like there's not as perfect an alignment between certain scarce resources. As Matt was speaking, we have a number of areas that the board's well aware where we have high demand for services and just not the workforce available in the community, no matter how aggressive we are in recruiting folks, plus a lot of wonderful throughput for promotional opportunities for folks entering certain roles into others after a time. But we do continue to staff at the level that we think would maximize options for the court. Of course, also we struggle with then, we need to calibrate our investment of resources to what we're actually seeing as the utilization patterns.
Molly.
Thank you. Just two quick further points. First of all, I wanted to circle back to something that Micheline mentioned before, which is expungements to get system-involved people back in the workforce. Our office last year did 2,400 expungements, and we're really actively partnered with everybody to make sure that happens. But back to Judge McGowan's point about filings being down and Matt's point that supervised OR is up, with those two things, you might expect to see the jail population not sitting at 3,000, yet it still is. So I think we have more work to do, and we will advocate in front of those independent judicial officers to release more people and use fewer. You may not need EMP and SORP at the same time, and there has just been a marked increase in using more than one tool or mechanism available to supervise folks out on pretrial release. So, thank you.
Matt, just a timing question. Annually, I know you give us a report on the outcomes for folks who are in pretrial services. When does that come to us again?
That's today, actually. It's an annual population report.
No, what I was actually thinking about was I saw, and maybe I can't remember what committee now. Jiminy Christmas. But anyway, just the disposition, and let me just make this point. I do think, and I think, first of all, I want to just say, I think Public Defender O'Neill is always right to be asking or demanding, what we can do to make sure that people in our public safety and justice system are treated fairly and appropriately. Like that's actually the bottom line, I think, for all of us. What I'm really interested in understanding is that as we are moving more toward folks not being in custody, I think we anticipated an increase in SORP. I mean, I remember being in meetings where we were saying, yeah, the judges are they're gonna move as we demonstrate that we can safely take action. And so I did expect to see this. What I'm curious about is actually the point that you all raised, which is under what circumstances does it level off, and what are we learning now that we've had so many people go through this process, particularly, you know, unfortunately we had COVID, but that gave us more data than we would normally have had over an extended period of time. So what I'm wondering is when will we be able to look at those numbers and say for all of us that this is what we've learned in big chunks, and this is what the implications are of the actions we're taking. And let me just say why I'm concerned about it. One is, I think the point that that was just raised by Greta about planning is one that is obvious. But the other is that I've been curious about what are we putting in pretrial that actually belongs in probation now, or does it? I don't know. And then the other is, what are we learning about folks who are higher risk that are in supervision? And, you know, and I don't know the answer to that. Like so the way I look at these numbers is I look at less who's in custody, what the actual number. What I'm curious about is who's in custody from a profile perspective, who's out of custody from a profile perspective, and then how are we looking at recidivism and public safety overall. And I think, Susan, you asked a really smart question yesterday about what are all the indices we should be looking at beyond just the total numbers. And I think, Judge McGowan, you raised a really good point in terms of how we're looking at them. So anyway, I just couldn't remember when that report is coming to us.
Go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, I think what you're asking is a little bit, if I'm understanding you correctly, Supervisor Chavez, digging a little bit more deeply into the profiles of the typical client on SORP, the typical client on EMP, and learning about what is working, what is not working, and some performance metrics as to how they are doing on those supervisions. We can certainly come back with that information. What I would also highlight, and just to give a lot of credit to Matt and his team here, is they are very proactive with the rising caseloads that they're seeing. And they're working very closely in deep partnership with the courts to evaluate the people on SORP and on EMP for step down and step up as needed in order to address individual concerns. Because to Public Defender O'Neill's point, you know, net widening is a concern here. And with COVID, and some of the delays we've seen in the process, we're very mindful of what is the typical expected duration that somebody can be and should be on SORP and EMP. And so we are robustly working with our partners to start some of those processes. So we should have some data on that probably in the next 4 to 6 months about how that step down is working.
Thank you.
Also in partnership with the sheriff around the CASU program for some of our more high-risk pretrial services clients, and when it's more appropriate to have those with co-occurring cases with probation, supervised by probation, and those who may do better with the more constant 18-hour law enforcement supervision through CASU. So we are actively engaged in those processes, and I think coming back maybe in the springtime with some more information about how that's working would that mean, okay, that would be, we can do that.
Thank you, Casey. That's very helpful.
Thank you. I'm going to wrap this item. We've got three more items in about 40 minutes, but I just want to kind of put out a final thought that for sure doesn't need to be answered right now, but Supervisor Chavez mentioned whether the division between PTS and probation is correctly calibrated. Matt talked about the challenge of having to support clients with behavioral health, substance abuse, housing, and other needs beyond the typical scope of a pretrial services officer. So I'm wondering, and again, not for now, but for future conversations, whether there are ways in which we should be better directing resources from our various departments that do work in this area, so that the responsibility for these clients isn't fully on pretrial services officers. We don't have a motion, but I don't think we need one other than to receive the report, if you want to do that.
Move to receive the report.
And second. And let's vote, please.
Vice Chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
And Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for the really robust discussion. Very, very much appreciate it, and thank you to our pretrial service rock stars in the well there. Item 6 is to receive a report from probation relating to AB 372, the Intimate Partner Violence Pilot. And we are now probably all seeing on our screens an emergency alert, which has been issued. It's an earthquake drill, only a drill.
Only a drill.
If anybody would like to drop and cover, you're welcome to do so if you feel safe moving along with our meeting. We can do that as well. All right. Good morning. Nobody's dropping. Oh, Nicholas Burchard, Chief Probation Officer.
Yes, thank you. This is going to be a report by our office on AB 372, the Intimate Partner Violence Pilot. Prior to that, I can neither confirm nor deny whether we've had folks from pretrial come to work for probation. I just want to make sure that that's clear and on the record. AB 372 was sponsored by the California State Association of Counties, CSAC, and was passed by the governor in September 7th, 2018, and went into effect in July in 2019. This legislation authorizes the county of Santa Clara and 5 other counties to offer an alternative domestic violence program for individuals convicted of domestic violence. And so while this was a pilot project, this past July 2023, through the help of CSAC and our partners, the governor signed a bill which continued this pilot project into 2026. Our team here is here today to give an update on that project, what we've been doing as a county. I will let them please introduce themselves because I will definitely not say their names correctly. So I think it would be more appropriate if they announce themselves and introduce themselves.
I'm Kimberly Jocko, and I manage the Research and Development Unit within the Probation Department. And this is our newest Research and Evaluation Specialist. This is Dr. Saroj Didal. He will not be presenting today, but he is going to be the master of slide advancing. And our partner, Mandy Bly.
I think you're being hazed.
Hello, I'm Mandy Bly. I'm a consultant with the University of Cincinnati Corrections Institute, and we're the developers of the curriculum.
Interesting.
Hi, and good morning. Manager Frank Nessie with the Probation Department, and I do oversee our domestic violence unit as well as the AB 372 pilot. So if we can share. There we go. Okay. And as we mentioned, and as our chief had mentioned, this is going into our 4th year of the pilot. And next slide, please. We've worked very closely with our systems partners as well as many providers. And, you know, we are especially thankful for the Board of Supervisors for continued support and AB 109 funding, which has allowed us to continue with the pilot. And several points that well, there are many points that differentiate the AB 372 pilot from traditional batter intervention programs, but some that stand out would be the cost covered by the county. We have found that that's given less stress and strain to those families that are still together, as far as, you know, having to come up with those funds for continued class costs. The other is there's been increased collaboration between probation and the provider and the decision making, because many times With the traditional model, if you miss a certain number, you're basically, it really doesn't matter what the reason is, you're kicked out of the program. Now there is collaboration between us and the providers to make sure that we take a look and see what are the factors that are leading to that person missing the class. Does it make sense for them to be pulled out and maybe go into a later cohort? Or where are they in the program? Is it something where they've advanced far enough to where they can take makeup sessions and then catch up to in the program? So it's been a lot more working closely with our providers. And we'll let Mandy move on to the next.
Sure. So just to talk a little bit about the program itself, one of the key things that Santa Clara County did was try to differentiate the program by risk level. And so they did this using their ODARE scores. And the main difference is for the moderate and high, is difference in frequency, length, and the amount of skill practice offered to moderate and high-risk individuals versus individuals with a lower risk level. Both programs were delivered in a closed cohort, meaning the same participants that began the program kind of stayed together throughout rather than allowing for entrance of additional participants. There was also both programs or both curricula utilize evidence-informed approaches for both interpersonal violence as well as individuals who are justice involved. And there is an expectation of practice of skills between sessions and kind of follow-up and review of that. So there's some key factors. The main difference, again, is between the frequency, intensity, kind of an amount of skill practice.
So you can go ahead and advance. So we're going to talk about some fairly high-level evaluation outcomes. Obviously, we don't have the time today to go into the deep nuances of this. So first of all, let me direct your eyes to enrollment rates. So we absolutely met our targets there. So among the individuals whom we were hoping to enroll in this sort of intervention, we had 86% enroll in the more intense 52-week session, and we had 91% enroll in the lower intensity 16-week session. So we absolutely met our targets there in getting these folks into interventions. Where we did fall short a little bit of our targets was with our completion graduation rates. So you can see that in the more intense 52 session for the higher risk folks, we only had a 53% graduation level. So we did not meet our target with that. Now with the 16 session intervention for the individuals assessed as being a little bit lower risk, we did meet our target of 75% successful completion or graduation rates. However, when we look at the primary outcomes of interest, so what are the primary outcomes of interest among this population? Well, recidivism, generally, but also recidivism where they are continuing to commit similar or related offenses. So with the 52-week session, you can see that our outcomes are pretty promising. Right, we have statistically and substantively significant differences between the pilot, the intervention group at 52 weeks, or at 52 sessions, excuse me, and between a non-intervention contemporary, so from the same time range. But also we had another comparison group, from a historical sample from prior to the legislation, and also, to be very honest, prior to COVID. Because with the COVID and everything that occurred, shutdowns, courts, things like that, we felt more comfortable if we could triangulate the findings and do some confirmatory analysis, right? So basically what it's saying is that direct your eyes to the two middle outcomes. And that is there were statistically significantly in a positive direction differences between those groups specific to committing domestic violence offenses and protective order violations. And so if you think about who's the population we're trying to intervene with, those are the offenses we don't want them to continue committing primarily. Now, remember in the previous slide, we had a higher graduation rate in the 16-week session, right? But the positive outcomes among those were not statistically significant. So we're learning a lot in this evaluation. It's not telling us everything, but it is telling us that the outcomes for 16 sessions are not as promising as the outcomes among offenders that received the 52 session, more intensive twice-a-week intervention. Oh, we're going to lose our connection here. Sorry. So then the other meaningful finding is how long between when they received this intervention, among anybody who did, go on to commit a similar offense. Basically, looking at how durable are the outcomes of this sort of intervention. So you can see that with the AB 372, so that's our intervention group right there, that in cases where there was a subsequent violation, that it was a lot longer. So we call that a more distal offense. So, we need to be careful about specific conclusions that we draw, but what we're seeing is that an intense IPV intervention that lasts a sufficient duration for them receiving the intervention looks to be promising to delay recidivism for those similar offenses.
One of the unique things about the AB 372 pilot here in Santa Clara County was the offering of co-occurring services to survivors when participants enrolled in the program. This became really important because, as we know from research, intimate partner violence is an underreported offense, and certainly that the arrest data don't necessarily accurately reflect the incidents that are taking place. So the collection of some feedback from the survivors that were still in contact or communication with program participants as to what they were observing was a really important data point, and it's unique to this program. So that was also encouraging that even in addition to the kind of arrest data that was being found, the reporting from individuals that were involved with these participants also were overall seeing some indications of change or movement in the right direction. And so that was a really encouraging data point as well, and unique to the pilot in Santa Clara. We also faced some challenges throughout the course of the program that I would say probation and partners are actively working to address. So one was the length of time between the arrest date and the referral to programming. For the 52-week program, that was about a 2-year lapse. And just over a year for the low risk. So thinking about looking at opportunities to decrease the amount of time between arrest and program engagement and referral is something to look at. Additionally, it might make for more meaningful survivor engagement because sometimes when survivors were contacted, what we heard from our community partners was, why are you contacting me now? They got immediate services, obviously, around the time of the incident, but this seems so far out. So we might be able to more meaningfully offer some things and collect ongoing feedback as a way we want to find out how we can do that. And then really looking at how we can have a capacity and framework for the ongoing collaboration that Frank mentioned earlier, that was a key, that this increased collaboration and communication between probation, providers and other key community stakeholders to help us kind of collaborate and problem solve challenges as they arise, as well as sustain the program in a high fidelity way will be really important. So those are some things we look to do. And I don't know, Frank, if you want to speak about any of the efforts that are happening or?
No, I think it's in the ledge file. We're working feverishly to make sure that we can cover those bases.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the file, the ledge file, was actually very well done and informative, so thank you. Colin, do we have public speakers on this item?
We have no request to speak in the room. We do have one request to speak online.
All right, my usual notice, if anyone on Zoom wishes to speak on this item, now is the time to raise your virtual hand. We'll give that a few seconds, and then the queue for speaking will close when the first speaker begins.
And comments will be limited to item number 6, the Intimate Partner Violence Prevention Pilot Program Report. We still have one speaker remaining. Resident, you'll have 2 minutes to speak, and the timer will start when you begin speaking.
Yes, hello. Firstly, I'd like to thank the probation department for creating this wonderful report. I mean, it was obviously done with a lot of empathy in mind. We do need to care about other people. I think caring about other people, it helps decrease a lot of the pain and the misery that exists in our community. Unfortunately, it exists. But with wonderful reports like this and actions, we can decrease it. I think one thing that is missing from this report from the probation department is the abuse of these types of accusations to facilitate crimes, basically. For instance, I'll give you my example. I was accused of violating a restraining order through a third party. I didn't do it. I provided the DA's office exculpatory evidence showing that, and they had it also, but they went ahead and filed a complaint anyhow. And they didn't include this exculpatory evidence that they had anyways. They had it from the police. And the only reason they did that was to quickly send the matters into competency proceedings and to cover up the sexual abuse of my kids. And I hope that we can have empathy for these types of situations. If somebody could please help my kids, please. I've been begging this committee for months now to please help me. Please, what if they were your kids? What would you want for your kids? You wouldn't want this for your kids. So why would you want this for mine? Why? Please, please, please have a heart. Please talk to Mr. Rosen, or please take action on your own behalf. Please help my kids. Thank you very much.
And that concludes our request to speak.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you. I know we're short on time today, and I really could ask you like 1,000 questions. I do just want to ask 2 very high-level questions, and then I'll just be requesting a meeting with all of you just to follow up. One is that were you removing any individuals from the cohorts if they were holding the rest of the cohort back?
So this was an interesting process over the last couple of years. One of the things we found, the reason it's become so important is because no matter what the approach is, the research shows that people who complete interventions for intimate partner violence have lower recidivism rates overall. So figuring out how we can keep people engaged in complete programming. So we toyed with this over time, I would say, in terms of we wanted to move away from a 4th absence and you're terminated or removed from the program. There were individuals removed from the cohorts throughout the process, but that was usually done in collaborative discussion between the facilitators and probation, which was incredibly helpful because they both had information about what was going on in the lives of these individuals with an eye toward what can we do to support them in completing this program before removal. But there were individuals removed from cohorts.
Yes, colleagues, let me just explain the reason I'm asking. The reason I'm asking is that I was part of the planning for the county on the change between the 52 weeks to the 16 weeks and all that, and there were 4 issues that were very important. One was lowering the barriers to engagement, which you did brilliantly. A second was that the idea that we had to create some parity between the victims and the perpetrators, in the sense that better understanding how the services based on what the family's needs were really being examined, right? Some people wanted to stay back together, some people wanted to separate. So really being able to be more customized was part of the idea. The third was that we had concerns in general about the curriculum, or I did. And then the fourth, the curriculum that was being used for the 52 weeks prior. And then the last was that I think the courts have had this experience too, where you have some individuals who fundamentally will not be impacted by these kinds of programs, and sometimes their mental health disorders, whether that's narcissistic personality disorder or something very significant, can impact the entire cohort. And so the reason I'm asking the question is, I want to know, were we able to, if we had that situation, were you able to remove somebody who was really maybe holding the whole group back? Or did that become even necessary?
Very focused on skill practice and skill development, which doesn't allow for so much, for one group member to, say, dominate a conversation that you might have in a more traditional talk therapy approach in that
Oh,
sense. So I
interesting.
think it was minimized overall, but it definitely, we were able to remove people if it was determined that their participation was detrimental to the group, yes.
And then lastly, like I said, I have so many other questions, and so I will certainly be following up with you. What was the partnership between this program, you all, and the Office of Gender-Based Violence, if any?
Well, I don't know I'm the best person to answer that, but what I can say is there were monthly meetings throughout the pilot. I don't know if they're continuing, but the Office of Gender-Based Violence, I believe, was part of those monthly or maybe they were quarterly stakeholder meetings that we had to discuss any concerns that were coming up. Community Solutions was part of that. Camino, our provider, was part of that. The Office of Gender-Based Violence, I want to say the Public Defender's Office and the DA's office were also part of those meetings to talk about, from perspectives and what they were seeing, what any concerns were.
So through our chief operating officer, what I would like to recommend is that there be a formal debrief between you all and the Office of Gender-Based Violence, in part because they're reissuing an RFP for the work around gender-based violence. And this goes back to the point I was raising around what are we doing for the victims and aligning that with what we're doing with the offenders. So if that, through our county exec's office, if we could just make that happen, it would be important. And again, what I would just suggest is something off agenda, that if in fact there's some learnings that need to be integrated into that other, Dr. Luna, sorry, I forgot you were here. There, you're so quiet today. But that if we could just make sure that the learnings are shared with that office in a very discreet way, because of the process they're going through relative to reissuing those RFPs. And then I'll be requesting a meeting with all of you. Thank you. I would move approval to receive the report.
Thank you. Happy to second it. I can't tell if it's Molly
any
or
of
the
our
sheriff
colleagues-
whose
oh,
light's on.
sorry.
It's me. I just have a really quick question, and thank you for that report. We did participate in the meetings and the kind of envisioning of this, and it's great news for our client base. But my question is, and maybe I apologize if I missed it in the report, how many participants were in each program for this evaluation? I didn't see the number.
I'm not sure offhand. I want to say the data that you saw here was the data from year 2, the numbers. We do have, it's divided up by year, but I don't know if the total participants we can get it for you. We definitely have the numbers.
We can give you that. We didn't put in the whole population because we were using those 3 comparison groups, because we had the historical, the contemporary, and the pilot. But we'll get back to
Okay,
those total
thank you.
numbers.
All right. Your light went off. Thank you again so much. My lack of questions simply reflects my appreciation of the report and Supervisor Chavez's input. I really think the work is exciting. Thank you. Let's vote on this item, please.
Vice Chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
And Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7, Sheriff's Office Annual Statistics Report. Sheriff Johnson.
Thank you, President Ellenberg. And I know this was a carryover, I believe, from the last meeting, and I will keep it brief just for the interest of time. And is it acceptable to go ahead and go with 7 and 8 together, since they're kind of...
That would be a delight to go
Awesome.
with 7 and 8 together.
I was hoping you would say that, but I'll start with 8 if you don't mind, because it's a really brief update
Please.
on our rehabilitation director position, and that's a recruitment. If you remember, we put out, thanks to the board's approval of adding that item to our department during the last budget session, and we immediately worked with ESA to get out a recruitment for that. Recruitment page was up for, I believe, over 30 days, receiving applications from across the country. That was narrowed down through ESA, and then a couple of rounds of screening. And actually, I would thank Casey, who's here. She was on our first round of panel interviews, as well as Javier. And that's been narrowed down to where today, actually, this afternoon, we're interviewing the final set of candidates. So the update is we will have probably a rehabilitation director identified by the end of the week, which we're very, very excited about. And we have no doubt it will be a tremendous asset to the organization. So again, thank you for that. And we'll put out a press release once the individual has been identified and hired. So with that, I will move to the other, unless there's any specific questions about that.
No, and
Yeah,
just
go
for
ahead.
the public's notice, we'll take public comment on 7 and 8 together following both presentations.
Perfect. Then I will move into item number 7, which is really all I wanted to do for this group as well as the public. You know, if you remember, one of my objectives when I came into this organization was to really work on enhancing transparency, accountability, and oversight. And we've done a tremendous amount of work in all of those areas in a very short period of time, in my opinion. As you know, which I won't be getting into the details today, but we did sign an information sharing agreement with the OIR, dramatically expanding their access to our investigations, providing that oversight component, which I'm very excited about and happy to have them as a partner in that. When it came to transparency and accountability, one of the things that we were lacking, in my opinion, was really giving information out to the public that could be of value. And so we have built a transparency portal on our website now. If you go to our website, go to the About Us, scroll down, you'll find the transparency portal. And what the transparency portal does, and I'll get into it in a moment, the other piece on that that we've added is, and I'll be discussing today and showing you a few slides on, is our 2022 annual statistical report. And that's something we'll continue to provide as the years go on. But with the transparency portal, that is something that you may be well aware of as far as Senate Bill 1421 and SB 16 that really required law enforcement agencies to provide information on a certain category of incidents that they may be involved with. Primary one would be the discharge of a firearm at a person, officer-involved shootings, as most people refer to them as. But there's a list, and you can see it here, and I'll just, again, all of this is accessible on our website, so I won't go through each item. But the other thing that we wanted to do is make sure that statistics and access to information that may be of value would be there. So again, if you go onto that transparency portal, you'll now see the crime rates, crime statistics, investigations from our various units, the amount of use of force that has occurred, custody statistics, citation statistics. I think it's actually one of the most informational websites that I'm aware of for law enforcement agencies to provide this much data. And just to give you a highlight of a couple of those slides, one of the things we know that residents are concerned about is crime rates, crime statistics. So we started off by showing just an overall crime rate comparison, and a crime rate for individuals that may or may not know is really when you're comparing the number of crimes per 1,000 residents, or on a larger scale per 10,000 residents. But for our site, we went with the 1,000, so it could be a little easier to read. And then when you go through that, you can scroll down, and it obviously will show you where we stand, not only locally, but at a state level, and so on. And then we go even deeper into it. Well, for this presentation, we actually wanted to show you specifically where the sheriff's office crime rate stood against all the other municipalities. And we do include, for those that may not be aware, the sheriff's office has law enforcement responsibility over the unincorporated areas, as well as our contract cities, Saratoga, Cupertino, Los Altos Hills, and then we have some other contracts as well. But for the most part, you can see the crime rate in this county is relatively stable as far as, especially when it comes to violent crime. Some areas, obviously, it's going to be higher, some lower. Again, based on population, we'll determine that. If you go to the next slide, another area that we wanted to put on our website was the use of force. And supervisors, that this is something that's come to you before. We did it a couple of months ago. I think you saw the overall number, whether it was presented through us or OIR. We provided that. But we wanted the community to have access to that, and we'll continue to provide that information moving forward, just to give them a breakdown and an idea of the level of force that's being used and the types of force that's being used. And if you go to the website, you won't see it in this presentation, but we really get into a lot greater detail as far as the amount of injuries that were sustained, how those injuries were sustained, and going on. So go ahead and go to the next slide. Just in another example, this is what I spoke about earlier, how easy it is to access going into the sheriff's website, about us, scroll down, and you'll be able to get to a lot of the information that we've been covering. And I think without any additional slides, if there's any questions or comments for clarification. But again, I would invite especially community members to check out the website. Our staff has done an amazing job putting this together, collecting this information, and will continue to do so as we move forward.
I do have one clarifying question. What is pain compliance on the previous slide?
So pain compliance is a low-level use of force for the most part. It would be, and I'll use Matt as an example because he just put his arm out. It would be where an officer uses a pain compliance to help escort somebody who's resisting. And it's very, very low level, meaning I may just do this, turn of the wrist, and it's very, very low level and almost rarely causes injury.
But causes pain.
It would cause discomfort. I mean, that's why it's called a pain compliance. But again, it's not designed to inflict long injury.
Thank you. Do we have public speakers on either 7 or 8?
There are no requests to speak.
All right, then I will turn to committee members with appreciation first for the Sheriff's Office for this work in transparency and clarity, and really also overall navigability of the site. So thank you. Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you. If you could go to the comparative crime rates per 1,000 residents.
Just put that slide back up.
Yeah, just so I understand what I'm looking at, because you said you were using a 1,000 resident benchmark. Is that correct?
Yes. So, for example, the crime rate would indicate, and we'll use the California one because it's at the top of the, oh, it's not on the screen yet, but at the top it said 28.33. That would be out of every 1,000 residents, 28 residents are a victim of crime.
And I'm looking down just to look at our area, because, I'm going to ask or choose San Jose and Palo Alto, just because they're right next to each other. But does that mean that Palo Alto and San Jose have a higher crime rate than the state of California over the last 12-month period?
Yes, but with crime rate, just we have a slide on the website that would show it, what goes into that number. crime rate, those are Part 1 crimes that every agency is required to report. Those are the top 8 crimes for the most part: the homicide, robbery, sexual assault, rape, grand theft, larceny, and arson. So those are the ones that get calculated into these numbers. It's not all crime, and I think that's important for people to understand, because there's a whole lot of other crimes that occur that different agencies would report and make arrests for, but this data is specifically associated with Part 1 crime.
And then just to go across that, so then if I'm looking at violent crime, San Jose would be above the state average, Palo Alto would be below the state average.
Could we pull up that slide, please, with the chart?
Oh, no,
There you go.
yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. And then, so that's accurate, what I just said? And those are of the Part 1 crimes across?
Yes, on that particular slide, you have the California, the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office in each individual city. The overall crime, the violent crime, as you mentioned, so yes, it would indicate, as you had said, San Jose, the city of San Jose, would have a slightly higher crime rate than the state of California. But again, the state of California is taking the total population of the state.
Right. And then the last one on the property crimes, and I appreciate your point that this could be a very long list, but on the property crimes, then Palo Alto is slightly higher than San Jose. And what I was really curious about is how you get, I wouldn't have thought of Palo Alto and San Jose on their 12-month, I wouldn't have thought of them as being at the same level per thousand.
Well, Palo Alto, and I'm familiar with Palo Alto because
that's actually the other reason I pulled it, yes.
You know, it's interesting, the dynamics, because it's based on the population, residential population, but as you know, Stanford University, a variety of reasons, the daily population is much higher. And they also have the mall. So again, property-related crimes gets factored into this.
Because that's part of the Part 1
Yes.
crime. If they're violent crimes or if they're over a certain amount?
No, well, violent crime or property crime. Violent crime would be your homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, those 4 categories. Then the property is the residential burglaries, commercial burglaries, well, burglaries as a whole, right? Then larceny, which is almost always the largest number that contributes to the crime rate. So I always tell agencies, if you want to reduce your Part 1 crime, you reduce larcenies because it's always the biggest number, and statistically that can have a huge impact. But again, you have certain municipalities that, to your point, well, why would Palo Alto, population-wise, have so much more than Saratoga or Cupertino? Well, primarily because they have the mall, and they have a lot of things in the downtown area where a lot of the larcenies would occur.
Thank you. And what would be counted in Palo Alto if all of Stanford is counted in Palo Alto versus unincorporated Santa Clara County?
The difference between Palo Alto...
Well, I was just saying that part of Stanford is actually in unincorporated.
In unincorporated, and those would come in us. We would take those
If we were on that side.
Yes.
Well, thank you. That was very helpful. I just really, that number between Palo Alto and San Jose jumped out at me because I've never, actually, I'm going to be talking to the mayor of Palo Alto. I'm just kidding. Thank you.
They actually, to Palo Alto's credit, they do a phenomenal job. It's just the sheer number
of people
that come into that city on any given day. So it does skew the numbers a little bit.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? All right, I don't believe we need to take any action on either 7 or 8. Thank you, Sheriff Johnson, very much for both. I think with that, we are adjourned to the next Public Safety and Justice. Announcements, my apologies. Did we have any announcements?
In 30 seconds or less, the court is beginning care court planning. The County of Santa Clara is in the second tranche, which means we need to be ready to roll by January of 2025. We look forward to county participation with that project, and I will be the point person for the court. We'll start reaching out. We've received our seed funding, which is very insignificant. We met with San Francisco County this week and other counties about what steps they've taken in the first tranche. And I'm delighted to say that our county is already so far ahead of so many counties that for us, I think and predict our population will be low, but we'll still need to take the right steps to get it set up and ready to go. Okay?
Thank you for that very important announcement, and do look forward to lots more conversation. Not seeing, is your light on for an announcement? All right, not seeing anything further, I will adjourn this meeting to our next regular meeting right here in Board Chambers, 10 a.m. on November 9th.